Go.
Ready? Okay, I want you to know that I'm reading this review with pride. I was instrumental in the creation of this inspiring movie. Brendan is going to probably postpone his baptism by 2 weeks. The Day of Defense, written by the review by Eric D. Snyder, who I think is a communist, as the single worst Mormon themed movie so far. A record that I hope stands for a long time. Day of Defense should be considered an embarrassment, not just to members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but to film goers in general. In fact, even non-film goers, even obscure human beings who've never set foot in a movie oh, why did this guy just shoot me? Okay, I lost it. Ought to be dismayed that a movie of this caliber was created by their fellow man. A national day of mourning ought to be set aside. And then there ought to be mass suicide. Sorry, I go a little too far. Oh no! In my heart, purpley sometimes, but this movie is bad. Based on an unworkable premise, written by an irredeemably bad ear for dialogue, and acted by seemingly untalented performers, and shot in many too dark rooms on cheap-looking digital video. This isn't a film of astounding badness. It is jaw-droppingly, paralyzingly, laughably bad. It ranks not just as the worst Mormon film ever, but as one of the 2 or 3 worst films I've seen all year. And I just saw Justin to Kelly. It is based on a book by A. Melvin McDonald, I'm not a prop, that uses a courtroom setting to present a series of basic arguments and refutations regarding the LDS doctrine. Someone says, well, what about this apparent contradiction? And the Mormon replies, it can be explained this way, and so on, eventually proving the LDS Church is true. Missionaries like it because it helps them with their sort of discussions they get involved with on a daily basis. Well, someone decided to expand this plot-free book into a movie. This meant either continuing to exist without a plot or coming up with one. The problem is, how do you arrange to have 2 Mormon missionaries on the stand in the United States courtroom charged essentially with believing a religion whose doctrines are false? In real life, in the real United States, such a trial would not occur, as there's no such thing as a doctrine so untrue that it is against the law to believe in it. The book is fine as a rhetorical exercise, but to try to work it into a story set in a modern-day America, impossible. Yet the film tries to do just that, putting 2 missionaries, stubborn, road-weary Elder Burke and young, inexperienced Elder Davis, in a little picket fence town called Marysville. The proselyte there requires a license, and to get a license you have to prove to the Christian Town Council, a legion of doom-style board consisting of ministers from the 5 accepted local religions, dressed at all times in their preaching costumes, and you represent a Christian faith? Heaven help the Jew in Marysville. The CTC says Mormons aren't Christian, hence no license, and the missionaries have to get out of town. But not so fast. The town judge, a woman who I believe to be an android, thinks it would be interesting to run a test case on the CTC rules. She's the only judge there a month, and already the locals don't cotton to her way of doing things. Judge Bott instructs the district attorney, James Radner, to prosecute the missionaries, and public defender Thomas Bryant to defend them. Not on charges of preaching without a license, mind you, but of not being Christian. Somehow, Radner and Bryant, lifelong friends whose families have dinner together each week, made it through law school and passed the bar exam without ever realizing that being a non-Christian is not against the law in the United States. At no point in this film is the First Amendment vote mentioned or referred to. So you can see how already I am having trouble with the movie, where I can even accept its basic premise as being remotely possible. In a backwoods town 50 years ago? Maybe. Maybe, but in 2003, in a town that, albeit small, has cops, a judge, indoor plumbing, and what appears to be a normal level of sophistication and intelligence amongst its town people. No, this simply couldn't happen in the real world. Oh, I forgot to mention, there is a jury too, composed of locals, even though it's a well-established fact that the locals hate Mormons, making them the least impartial in recent memory. So somehow the trial happens. Radner lets the town's pastors and ministers grill the missionaries for a day, except the missionaries aren't really allowed to defend themselves, making the film's title a bit of a misnomer. They must have to listen while the prosecutor cites one scripture after another to demonstrate that Mormon doctrine is false. Elder Davis puts on a defeated, uncomfortable face, while Elder Burke remains stoic. They then have a week to prepare their defense. I don't know why the lawyer is even necessary. Brian is certainly no use assisting them in the organization and explanation of their beliefs, since he thinks Mormons are as wrong as everybody else, as the town does. So the film's plugging away slowly and dully. The acting is uniformly flat and unconvincing, with many awkward, silent pauses in the dialogue. How I feel good about it. A lot of Peter Breinholt's songs play on a soundtrack which the missionaries and Brian talk and try to convert each other. The elders try to ingratiate themselves among the townspeople who throw rocks at them, which is this strangely imaginable American town where every single citizen is this passionate about religion. A local tramp commits vague, unsexy acts of flirtation.
That's the best part of the movie.
This is the worst for you. It is all tedious and poorly acted and awful. And you think it can't get any worse? It does. And then, and this is something special, some kind of a hell-spawned miracle. Somehow, the film gets worse. Yes, a major plot event occurs that causes the bottom to drop out. Altogether, quality rise. I won't spoil it for you. But suffice it to say that it's really, really funny. It isn't supposed to be. At that point, the film abandons all hope of salvaging it. It is lost forever in the realm of bad filmmaking. We loved it, we tried to help it, but it had its free agency and it chose darkness. What amuses me the most about Day of Defense, this is an encyclopedia. What amuses me most about Day of Defense was that it was directed by first-timer Adam Lawson, in that despite being made by LDS people about LDS missionaries, it exhibits an alarming lack of knowledge on how missionaries do work. Missionaries haven't been in Marysville in a while, yet the elders already have an apartment they're waiting for. Evidently, the mission has been paying out rent on an empty flat for all this time. And there's no local LDS ward or branch, which means the elders wouldn't have been sent there anyway. They have been sent to whatever the nearest congregation was and simply included Marysville in their working area. Maybe they're living in Marysville, not covering a neighborhood town too, where the local ward is. But in that case, they'd need a car or at least bikes, and they have neither. And how did the mission office not know about Maryville's anti-preaching law? They're paying for an apartment in a town that won't even let the elders pound the pavement. Those are some seriously wasted tithing dollars. Where the film seems to be heading is to convince us the LDS Church doctrines are true doctrines of God. You expect it to end with the jury being converted and baptized, or the CDB bursting in flames, or something like that. Such a preachy outcome would have been heavy-handed, true, but at least then the movie would have had a point. Serving as the celluloid version of a Mormon missionary pamphlet. Instead, it ends ambiguously with a resolution that makes you think, well, what fetch was the point then? At least that's what I thought, though my exact words might have been slightly stronger. I don't believe there's a single event in this film that is plausible, likely, or even possible. It exists on some other plane, an entirely different reality from the one we all know, where the laws of the United States are meaningless, where LDS missions are governed entirely differently, and where no one notices the quaintness of Mormon actors doing a poor acting job in a film where they all have to do is act like non-Mormons. Boy, I feel good about that.
You need to post that on your Facebook page.
Yes.
Say this is such a wonderful.
I need to encourage people to go watch my movie.
I just love that Troy's drinking a beer behind you.
Did you catch every time he yawned?
Yes.
This will encourage people to go see. Who wouldn't want to see it now?
Oh.
I